In a random room, a boy wakes up to the alarm on his phone. As he opens his eyes, he is startled. The entire room is painted with red scriptures. He wonders who could have written all that while he was asleep. However, strangely, the letters begin to disappear. He then thinks he must have been hallucinating because he just woke up. Weird how realistic it seemed. But then he looks to the side and notices the room he is in is not his room. Getting up, he wonders what kind of place this is. The instant noodles he ate and the 2 tissues he threw on the floor are no longer there. Obviously, he gets confused and starts to freak out. Suddenly, he seems to receive memories from another life, of someone who is identical to him. Moreover, both are orphans, but they followed different paths. Our protagonist studied all his life and got into an amazing university, but the guy whose body he took over dropped out of school and had a horrible job. Looking at his trembling hand, he wonders if he is in some other world. And what was the relation of those words written in blood on the ceiling? In the memories of the original owner of this body, there's nothing about that. He stands there, trying to understand the situation, when someone calls him husband and says it's time for breakfast. When he turns around, he sees a woman with large curves. Looking at her thighs, he wonders what this husband thing is about. In his parallel world, did he get married so early? She sits on the bed and tells him to get up, as it's getting late. Now the rascal already thinks that the transmigration wasn't so bad. He swallows hard, thinking that if it weren't for this transmigration, he would never have had such a beautiful and kind woman. She keeps calling him to have breakfast. He doesn't know whether to call her baby, wife, or darling. He then decides to delve into the memories to find her name, so it would be easier. He starts thinking and strangely finds nothing. His mind seems to split. No name, no experiences, no hobbies, no favorite position, nothing. There is absolutely nothing about her in his memory. He looks back hesitantly, realizing she is standing still. He already knows this so-called wife is strange. A fly lands on her eye. Hesitant, he asks who she is. She stands still for a second, then says that it seems he can already see. Opening a monstrous mouth, sweat and cold chills run down his spine. The protagonist says that he is just a little confused and will think about it properly. But by now, she has already turned into a giant creature, repeating that he can see. He cries for a second, but in the next, he is devoured. Suddenly, he wakes up in bed again, sweating cold and wondering what happened. He looks up, certain that everything was a dream, only to see the words in blood once again. He can't read them. The words disappear, and he thinks there might have been some kind of clue there. Staring at his own hand, he thinks he will have to pretend to be blind, but putting his hand on his head, he knows that in the memories of the owner of this body, he wasn't blind, so it makes no sense. He's a guy who always lived alone and never saw or heard anything out of the ordinary. That means he can't let this woman know that he can see her. For now, he will have to pretend she doesn't exist. A hand comes through the door and calls him, saying he just woke up and it's time for breakfast. Seductively, she approaches while he thinks he will have to ignore her and see how the former owner lived. She places the Dragon Balls and playfully asks if he is awake. Sweating cold, he knows he can't move and can't see, or else he will die. But suddenly, she turns her neck and approaches him while he insists to himself that he can't show any reaction. But she keeps getting closer, and suddenly her tongue comes out of her mouth. As it touches his face, he shows a reaction, and then she knows he can see. His face begins to be consumed, turned by a curse, and suddenly he explodes. In the next second, he opens his eyes and gets up, startled again. But now he's angry at that damned woman. The poor guy wakes up sweating cold and tries to stop and reason. He starts to wonder, is he being resurrected, or is this a time loop? Apparently, it's like when you save a point in a game. He grabs his phone, knowing she wanted to force him to show a reaction. He puts on TikTok videos of dancing e-girls to pretend he's distracted. Once again, she appears behind him and says it's time for breakfast. She calls for her husband and asks why he is looking at other women like that in front of her. He starts talking to himself, saying that he loves that girl from the live stream. Meanwhile, his wife asks if he doesn't like her anymore. She approaches and says she knows he doesn't have a vision problem. So why is the phone so close? Is he seeing her by any chance? He goes back to fiddling with his phone, wondering if he even can. It seems strange. However, he calms down a bit since she didn't show any reaction. He then goes back to looking for other live streams, but then he gets a scare. She appears live streaming on his phone. He stands up and throws the phone on the bed, scared as he trembles a bit. She's behind him, and as he turns, he sees her. She opens her monstrous mouth to eat him, but he tries to throw a punch. She dodges, and then there's nothing he can do. A bite to the arm, he agonizes and dies once again. While she feeds on the pieces, he wonders if that is really his remains. With that, he starts losing consciousness again. Once more, she says it's time for breakfast, and she approaches, startling him. Up to the 6th time he resurrected, he still got scared just by her getting close to his face. He died multiple times because he couldn't act very well. On the 8th time, he tried to escape from that room, but there was no way out. She realized that she could be seen, so he concluded that he should pretend to like her since there was no escape. As soon as she came to give breakfast, he said she was amazing. His plan was to take advantage of that as much as possible, but in the end, he went hungry and she ate everything. And so he died 13 times in a row while trying to find some way to calm down. Some people who go insane become very sane, but for him, death kept coming. It reached 14, 15, 16, and with each death, he received new memories of the owner of that body. He started to understand a bit about that world and how different it was from his world. This is a place full of bizarre tales. On the 18th death, he wondered why he was reliving it. Who wrote those words in blood, and why do they disappear as soon as he looked at them? Once again, he opens his eyes, wondering who is responsible for all this. He doesn't know who it is, but he knows his wife is one of them. She is a monster, and he began to repeat to himself that she should die because he deserved to live. Once again, she came through the door, calling him husband, and saying it was time for breakfast. He got up, milling that every time she comes to do this, she never forces physical contact. Standing in the door, she asked if he wanted to start the day by eating some hot, moist meat. He got extremely close, but he walked right through her. As expected, she could only do something where she was sure he could see. He wanted to prepare some food while she desperately stood by his side, insisting that she already made breakfast and was ready for him. The poor guy sighed, thinking that the more beautiful the lie, the better. She said it was ready, but clearly there was nothing prepared. He made a snack, knowing that only by leaving that room would he find something about his wife. When he went to take a bite of the snack, she had transformed into the floor, asking if he was seeing anything. He went to the door to open it, knowing he needed to get out of there. She was visible on the doorknob, asking where he was going and why he wouldn't stay home with her. But he just opened the door and left the room, saying to himself that no one kills him 18 times and gets away with it. Now he wants revenge. As soon as he finds a way to eliminate her, he will come back here. But as soon as he opens the apartment door, he gets a scare. Looking at the sky, the world is red and filled with deformed creatures. In front of him, only the silhouettes of people. He gets scared by that and starts laughing like a psychopath, saying that this world is really interesting. But he feels something strange and vomits on the sidewalk. Suddenly, someone appears, asking if the uncle is okay. He looks startled, and it's just a little girl wanting to know if he's sick. He tells her he's fine and that she can call him Big Brother. Patting her head, he thinks she's so cute that he would love to have a daughter, but she transforms instantly, saying he can see. His heart stops as he looks up. The girl has turned into a giant demon with a blade. Our protagonist is at a loss for words and then starts laughing loudly, saying that this world is very, very interesting. He likes it and tells her that he really likes this appearance because that way, when he kills her, he won't feel any guilt. He will end all the weirdos in this place without any remorse. But this time, he was torn to pieces. Once again, he wakes up in bed with the balloon wife asking if her husband is okay. The sun is already rising. The poor guy thinks that having breakfast 20 times in one day is really tiring. Sometime later, he is sitting on a park bench. Once again, the little girl comes and asks where her mother is. Can he take her home? While he's thinking about the madness and all the kinds of strangeness in this place, he realizes there are two types, the completely strange and irrational ones, who are aggressive but can't affect anything like air, and the other type, the creatures that are identical to humans who do nothing but try to get close to you.